Welcome back to Thursday nights. That's right, Thursday night with the Dynasty Nerds and the Better Sports Network, the best combination you can get. Man, great show planned for today. We are getting so close to the regular season. We've got the final week of preseason stuff going on as we speak. Couple games in the works. Couple games already starting to look like a blowout. But all of that being said, today's show is going to be sweet because we have my good friend Corey Easterday coming on in just a few moments. And then we will be also having Dennis Bennett on. And today is more or less the Redraft Extravaganza. Yes, we are Dynasty Nerds. We haven't changed our name. The logo is still the same. The name is still the same. We are still very much so a Dynasty show. But we're going to be very redraft focused tonight because we are going to be talking our top 12 players at each position. We're going to be talking about who we got where, why we have them there. It's going to be a really, really good show. A little discussion, a little debate about where some guys should be, where they should land, all of that good stuff. So very, very excited for this show. Also, before we get Corey on, because we're going to bring him on momentarily, before we get him on, though, I got to touch base with you guys on something that happened today. So today, we had the opportunity as the Dynasty Nerds podcast, myself, Rich, Matt, we were at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We did a live show. That's right, a live show for the troops. Super cool experience. We got a chance to go up in one of their jets. Like, dude, such a cool opportunity, such a cool experience. Get to do a live show with everybody. I ate ribs and wings and all kinds of stuff. They treated us so well, and we did record it. We recorded it. I was in the cockpit at one point. We saw attack dogs, and man, it was really, really cool. So we have some pictures, some video that'll get posted on our social media. We'll be we did the podcast from the base, so you guys will get to hear that podcast as well as the Nerd Herd episode. We did a lot of Q&A with some people there. So it was a really, really cool experience. And so glad Dynasty Nerds got to be a part of that. So lots of people already here. Better Boss saying top 12 rankings redraft show. Sign me up. Ramen said, win us multiple leagues tonight. I got you, baby. Sedated Fork is here. Steve's here. All the homies. All the homies are here. So let's bring on Corey Easterday of DynastyNerds.com. Fantastic writer and good friend of mine. Corey, how's it going, man?
I'm good, Garrett. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. So there's a lot of stuff that we get to talk about tonight, and we're going to get into the top 12s. But give a little, and I'm going to let you do it from your perspective because I get to do it from my perspective. And I think even last time you were on, I did. So remind the folks how we know each other and how you became part of Dynasty Nerds.
Yeah, well, I became part of Dynasty Nerds because of you and our friendship. We go way back. We probably met each other, gosh, it has to be like 13, 14 years ago now, maybe 15 years ago in college. We're getting old, man.
We're not young.
No, we're not young. We would not be high in the Dynasty football rankings simply because of we'd be late round picks.
But better on the contender side than the Dynasty value side.
Yeah, we can still help a contending team, but yeah, not a great Dynasty value. But so we met at Malone University in Canton, Ohio, became fast friends, played intramural basketball together, got into the same friend group with a lot of our friends and brothers in our famed Brotherhood Dynasty League that has been running for, I think we're going into our 11th season. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So it was both you and I's first time playing Dynasty fantasy football. And so for a long time, it was my only Dynasty league. Obviously, in the years since joining Dynasty Nerds for the last 2 years, and even before that, have played way more Dynasty, but that was our first experience. And I think just out of you watching me fail several times and learn really hard lessons, you're like, well, he cares. He pays attention. He tries really hard in the league. He's made a lot of mistakes, but he tries really hard to make up for them. So I think that gave you the confidence that I would be an asset to the team at Dynasty Nerds, not because I came in like you where I was really great at fantasy football from the jump, but the exact opposite. I was so terrible and learned so many great lessons that my wisdom is now priceless and has been hosted on the Dynasty Nerds website for the last 2 years because of you. So thank you.
There we go. Hey, we've all got to learn somehow. And, experience is the best teacher. It absolutely is. So, Corey, let's get into our top 12s. And I'm going to give mine as well. Now, I'm going to be talking about top 12s throughout the show. So I'll be touching on mine. So I want to focus on yours a little bit more so than mine. But what we have here is we've got the top 12 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So something I want to preface before we get into all of this. Utilize this knowledge of people that you trust and respect, but also make sure that we're very cognizant of ADP. Because if you just take one or just take the other, you're doing yourself a disservice. For example, if we give you someone in the top 12, but their ADP is, 25 at the position, first of all, that's a pretty big gap. So we're going out on a limb a little bit, but it doesn't mean you need to take them at 11 or 12. You can still wait on that player and scoop up value. We're just telling you that you're going to get a top 12 talent way back at pick 23, 22, because you want to make sure you get them. So you might take them slightly out of ADP, but you're still getting a huge value based on what we recommended. So I want to make sure that's clear. Just because we say someone is in the top 12 doesn't necessarily mean you have to draft them there if ADP dictates otherwise. Would you agree with that, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to just go based off the way I like to think of rankings and ADP and all of it in general. I think has been the most helpful for me whenever I draft, whenever I'm figuring out how to build my team, all that kind of stuff. Quite simply, just thinking about it in tiers. So when you're ranking guys, oftentimes it's very little things that determine if someone's number 10 or number 11 for you, or as you go on down the list, like two guys can be back to back. And in some cases, you could flip a coin and either guy could be ahead in the rankings. So sure. I agree exactly 100% with what you said about ADP in the rankings. And then I think just, making sure that you're viewing it in tiers as like, maybe I didn't get this guy in this tier, but there's another guy like in that similar kind of tier that would be just as helpful to me at the quarterback spot or whatever. So I'm comfortable taking him at a good value, that kind of thing. Tiers has been really helpful for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Corey, break down your top 12 receivers. We're starting at quarterback. Give me your top. Let's start with your top 6, and then we'll reveal 7 to 12. So give me your top 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure. So to be completely honest, I thought you meant top 12 overall when I was preparing.
Oh, my fault.
No, but that's fine because guess what? I'm a pro. I come prepared. I have
seasoned pro.
Yep, I have our Dynasty Nerds rankings pulled up, and so I am just going to look at that list and give you that in the order that I think it should be.
Okay.
These positions here. So, and then if you're interested, I can give you my top 12 overall. So there you go.
There we go.
Okay, so quarterback, Patrick Mahomes for sure. Josh Allen at 2. I would put Jalen Hurts at 3. Mm-hmm. I think Joe Burrow actually at 4. Justin Herbert Joe Burrow at 4. Let me redo that. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields at 5, Joe Burrow at 6, and we can pause there.
Yeah. All right. So I was curious to see where you had Justin Fields because I actually have him for redraft purposes. I have him within the top 6 as well. And I was wondering, how spicy is that? Because it's a little bit above ADP. I actually have Justin Fields at 4. So a spot ahead of you. Just after, in my opinion, what is the big 3 in Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen? So you have those pretty much the same. You've just flipped Allen as 2, Hurts at 3. So, but let's go back to Justin Fields. What gives you the confidence that he can be a top 12 guy and actually a top 6 guy this season?
Yeah, so I mean, again, thinking of it in tiers, I think Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, I think is a really good top 3 tier coming into this season, and I think that Lamar, Fields, and Joe Burrow, I think I said at 6. Like I would put probably Lamar and Fields in another tier because of the difference that they can make with their the running game and passing. And I am very high on Justin Fields going into the season specifically. I have been targeting him in a lot of drafts, as many as I can. He's a holdover for me in a bunch of dynasty leagues. Somebody I've been really excited to see his progression. I was big on him coming out of Ohio State a few years ago, but just watching him last year, the way they started to like actually use his running ability in that offense, and the way he was just lighting up the field through that aspect of his game, and then all the reports heading in to this offseason, and as we head into the 2023 season. He's really putting it together in a lot of ways from a passing standpoint. Obviously, they're surrounding him now with guys like DJ Moore they brought in. You have Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet. They've improved, I would say, the running game, Khalil, Donta Foreman, Roshan, all those guys. So they're building more of the offense around him. And I feel like we're really headed into year 3 where it's going to all come together for Fields.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I do think they'll look to open it up in the pass game a little bit more. But even if they don't, just on rushing ability alone, I mean, he was a top 6 guy last year. He should be a top 6 guy once again. All right, let's go 7 through 12 now. Who do you got 7 through 12?
Yeah, so Herbert for me at 7.
Okay.
I put T-Law at 8. I think he's quite ascendant. I'd say probably Dak at 9. I think he has a really high floor week to week. He's kind of a Kirk Cousins guy to me, in that like we know what he is. He may not have he has a good ceiling, but he would be there for me at 9. Probably Deshaun at 10 if he can get anywhere close to his top 5 quarterback status that he was at. And then I don't know if this is hot takey at all, but I think I would have Kirk Cousins at 11. I don't think he's a top guy, but I think he's just like, I was looking at his stats recently on a show with our friends at the Dad Bod Fantasy Squad, and he has had each of the last 5 seasons, just consistent high completion percentage, yardage totals, touchdown totals. Not a sexy pick, whatever, but for fantasy purposes, he's going to get you there. And then at 12, I'm gonna go with my guy A-Rod. I think I've been watching Hard Knocks. Lord knows that I get a case of Hard Knocks fever every offseason, and they wrote me right in. But he's the GOAT, man. Like I understand what he's been in Green Bay the last couple of seasons, but he's having a blast in New York. I think could definitely finish in the top 12 this year.
All right, so we have 2 guys that are different in our top 12. But let's touch on Prescott pretty quickly, because it's been a little bit trendy to not have him in the top 12 this year. I actually do have him at 12, but what gives you the confidence in Dak Prescott? Because he has lost a little bit in the running game. So what gives you the confidence to put him in your top 12?
Well, 12 and 10 that's again where I think tiers is helpful. Not like a huge stretch from one another, but I do have him in my top 10. So I just think that, assuming that he's going to be able to play out this year healthy, I'm actually not too worried about if there's a drop off in his running game. I think that Cowboys offense continues to be. I think it's going to be a good one this year. I don't think it's going to be maybe one of the absolute top offenses in the league, but I think it's going to be in that probably top third of fantasy offenses that you're going to want to have a part of. I'm thinking of top offenses. Like, I think the Vikings are going to be a great offense to have on your team, the Jags, guys like that. But I think the Cowboys, Prescott, to me, it's the safe bet. It's like, if I'm in a 10-team league and we're doing like one quarterback, I would feel fine putting Dak Prescott. That's kind of how I think of it with my top 10. Like, we have 10 teams, we have one QB who's getting that starting spot. And I think Dak's going to be in there week after week. I think it's not a ceiling play per se, but I think it's like a consistency. That's why I have him in a similar tier as a guy like Kirk Cousins and even Aaron Rodgers, because their ceiling week to week may not be as high as like a Lamar or a Fields, or maybe even some boom weeks from Anthony Richardson. But they're overall, when you look back at their fantasy points per game throughout the year, I think you'll be pleased.
No, I get that, and I have him there as well. So the two guys that you put in that I do not have Kirk Cousins inside of my top 12, and I do not have Aaron Rodgers as much as I wanted to put Aaron Rodgers in my top 12. I actually have two younger guys in my top 12 this season. So one of them I actually have all the way up at quarterback 7. So somebody not in your top 12 that I have at quarterback 7. Now, this is a little hot takey on my part, but I feel very confident in it despite that. I actually have Tua all the way up at quarterback 7 this year. So here's the rationale for me. Last year, we saw in several games Tua put up truly elite numbers, like elite numbers where he is number 1, number 2, like top 3 quarterback on the week. We saw him do that several times. And that was the first year in this offense. Traditionally, once you get the same OC, the same head coach, the same quarterback in their second year, they're usually significantly improved upon in the second year. The big thing for him is just, can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, I am really confident, because I also have 2 Dolphin wide receivers in the top 12. And so if I think that they're going to be getting that type of usage, that type of yardage, it's going to be really tough for Tua not to be a quarterback 1. He would have to really play poorly, turn the ball over a lot, because he's just going to have a stupid amount of yardage just from those 2 guys alone. So, Corey, I know you didn't have him in there. How far off do you think I am?
Not at all. I would put him at 13. Like, I think he would be just outside my top 12. I think it's exactly, for me, it's what you described. It's just the risk factor. I think that Hill and Waddle are almost quarterback proof in that Mike McDaniel offense, in the sense that even if Tua wasn't able to suit up for part or majority of the season, I still would keep those guys like in my top 12, top 15 receivers on a week-to-week basis. I think they're that good. So the rationale is certainly there for Tua. And if those 2 guys are linking up all year, yeah, I mean, that's an elite offense. Nobody's going to argue with that. Like, we've seen the high-flying Dolphins. We all doubted Tua. We didn't know what it was going to look like, and they proved many people wrong. For me, it's simply the risk factor. Again, I think of it in terms of, let's say we're in a 12-team, 1 quarterback league. Is Tua one of my guys? If I want the upside, sure, but I'm a little bit more risk-averse in fantasy. I like to go for sometimes the steady Eddie guys that I know I'm going to be able to rely on week to week. And, Tua just has enough red flags. Not that he's not in the top 15 or, top 13, I guess, in my case, but to have him as high as 7, to me, that's a completely understandable move. And it's a total like upside play. So,
I have, sorry, I got distracted real quick. So I also have another guy in the top 12, and you did quickly kind of mention him. And I shared a doc, and actually I just gave you access to it. So click the second link if you could, Tyler. Some people were asking if we could see the top 12s. Now, Corey, we had a little miscommunication, so his won't be like laid out, but I'll share my top 12s as we get to each position. So we can go ahead if you're able to, Tyler, and we can put up, we might have to zoom in a little bit. Don't look at the running backs. Close your eyes. It's spoiler alert. All right. Maybe I'll move them down.
You know what, Garrett? I think it'll be fine, because these wonderful, beautiful people involved in this show right now are here for you every week, not me. So yours is the Google Doc they want, my friend.
All right. I moved it down so they can't see my running backs, although I'm sure plenty of people caught it already. But I have Anthony Richardson in my top 12 as well this year. I think his rushing upside is absolutely absurd. And it's going to be really similar to what we just talked about with Justin Fields. Is he a efficient passer at this point? No, he's not an efficient passer at this point. But that being said, the rushing upside alone could easily put him inside of a top 12. So I have him there. I know I'm playing it a little more fast and loose with the rankings there, but I feel pretty good about him being in there. Corey, for you, how in general do you feel about having rookie quarterbacks inside of your top 12? Because we don't see it a ton where a rookie quarterback is inside the top 12. But if it's going to happen, it's going to be because of a guy like this. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, again, I joked at the beginning of the show about learning from my failures in Dynasty and in fantasy football. One of those was his rookie year. I was singing the praises of Justin Fields as loudly and as much as I could. I think this guy could finish as a top 10 quarterback, in his rookie year. And certainly, we're not comparing apples to apples. Fields is a different player than Richardson, so on and so forth. It's just to help give context that one of the kind of lessons I've learned is I think it's with rookies in general, but especially rookie quarterbacks that have the tools that Anthony Richardson does. There is so much hope and potential and excitement that I think that shows up in a lot of rankings. And I think we have a harder time overall as fantasy players kind of coming to grips sometimes with the reality of the NFL game and how it's played, the speed at which it's played, how hard it is for these guys, even the best that are coming out of college. And so, do I think Anthony Richardson is going to have some incredibly exciting moments this season and probably 6 or 7 boom weeks from a fantasy perspective? I think that is not out of the question at all. He's a very popular pickup in super flex leagues as like a second quarterback, first quarterback in some cases per year rankings. But to me, there's enough risk factor there of rookie QB learning a brand new offense. He's going to be for the Colts, especially depending on what happens with Taylor. Richardson's going to be the main focus for a lot of those defenses, kind of stopping his dual threat ability and containing it as much as they can. So simply because of his rookie status, year 2, year 3, I think if he keeps going trending upward, he's easily going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. But just for this rookie year, I would have him in my top 15, but can be a little rich, I guess, having him pretty high in the top 10. So
yeah, I got him at 11 overall. 10 overall. But with that, there is a slight caveat. If I'm drafting Richardson at 10, which I'm comfortable doing, drafting him as 10th quarterback of the board, you might be able to wait a little bit longer, not too much, because his redraft ADP is right around 14 right now. So you're not going to be able to wait too much longer. But if you take him, then I'm absolutely going back to the quarterback position again soon. And I am taking a Kirk Cousins then. I am taking somebody in that later on, maybe a Derek Carr, a safe, steady guy that I feel. Aaron Rodgers would be another really good one that I could take because his redraft ADP is closer to 17 right now. So if I'm going to take a guy like Anthony Richardson, I would prioritize a backup a little bit higher than I would otherwise. So trying to hedge my bets a little bit there. So, all right. So we can go off of this for now because we're going to go to Corey's top 12 running backs now. So we'll go full screen, just Corey and I for the moment. And then we'll bring the running backs back up. So Corey, top 12 running backs. Do you like breaking at 6 or do you just want to go top to bottom?
we can break at 6.
Okay. All right. Give me your top 6 to start.
Yeah. And for the record, completely agree with Richardson. I think, that combination makes a lot of sense. That's where I'd feel more comfortable with him being the guy for me in a redraft league, 10 or 12 team, if I had a good steady hand at the backup position, so I could maybe switch those guys out. So top 12, I'll start with top 6 running backs. Got to give number 1 to the homie CMC. There's always the injury concerns with him, but he's a beast. I think number 2, Austin Eckler. I won't explain everyone, but we'll go 2 Austin Eckler. I would say 3 is Saquon. 3 for me is Bijan, and 4 is Saquon. 5 is Nick Chubb, and it's it's really risky seeing what's going to happen, but he's still super talented. Doesn't matter where he ends up. 6 is Jonathan Taylor. So to recap, CMC, Eckler, Bijan, Saquon, Chubb, and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I actually really like that. Mine isn't super far off from yours. So we can well, let's wait. We'll show it when we do all the top 12. We'll show all 12 guys so people can see it. But I have CMC as the first one, and I have Austin Eckler as 2 as well. And then I have Bijan 3. So we are identical there. Chubb I have at 4, so I have Chubb 1 spot higher, but that's a tier for me. If you wanted to mix up specifically Eckler, Bijan, and Chubb in any order, I would be entirely okay with it, because Austin Eckler, 1, we've seen him do it before, so it wouldn't be a huge surprise. Bijan Robinson being at the top there wouldn't surprise me in the least. We've seen rookie running backs do that many times. Most recently, thinking of Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott, where they were top guys as rookies. So definitely in the realm of possibility. And with the workload that we expect him to get in an Arthur Smith offense, should be pretty massive. And then Chubb has a chance to be the number 1 overall guy this year. I really believe that. Now, am I willing to place him there? I'm not quite ready to do that, but the volume that he's going to get. But the big thing is Todd Monken. I'm mixing up J.K. Dobbins, but the offense that they are going to be implementing with Deshaun Watson this year, they're going to be throwing the ball more than they ever have before. And Kareem Hunt's gone. Jerome Ford's been banged up in camp. I think it's going to be the Nick Chubb show. And you start to see that a little bit at the end of guys' careers. Teams are a little more willing to just run them into the ground because they know they only have so much time left. So let's get all the juice we can squeeze out of this guy. So it wouldn't surprise me if these next 2 years are maybe Nick Chubb's last 2 real productive years, but they just grind him this year. So I have those 2 guys there. And then I do have Barkley and Taylor coming up, but the 2 guys I have ahead of them, I have Derrick Henry and I have Tony Pollard. Derrick Henry is partly just because there's a lot of question marks about some other running backs that I think are really talented, but I just don't know exactly what's going on, specifically Taylor and Jacobs. So I have them down a little bit. And Pollard, without Zeke coming back, without them signing anybody else, he was roughly in this spot last year with Zeke there. I'm super curious to see how he performs without Zeke. So those are my top 6. So give me your 7 to 12.
Coming in at 7, we got the unstoppable force, Derrick Henry. So not too far off there. I would say 8 for me, and not sure how hot takey this is, but I think he has some pretty incredible upside this year. Is Jahmyr Gibbs at 8. I would say Josh Jacobs at 9. I would go Pollard at 10. I would say ETN at 11. And I would say Najee at 12.
Okay, so let's touch on a couple. So you're a decent amount lower on Pollard than I am. What is it about Pollard, and below consensus as well? What is it about Pollard that you're just not quite bought in?
Yeah, so this matches up. So I had a friend show me a trade recently, and this is a Dynasty league, mind you. So, the values are a little bit different. But he traded away Jahmyr Gibbs and essentially got back Tony Pollard. There were other pieces, but that was kind of the running back exchange there. Now, I kind of balked at that trade initially, and my rankings would reflect that, where I have Jahmyr Gibbs in relation to Tony Pollard. Mm-hmm. I think that I just have questions about Tony Pollard being the 3-down guy in that offense. I know there's been hype around guys like Deuce Vaughn. I don't expect him to have a ton of competition. Maybe we'll see somebody kind of emerge that comes in on like passing downs and, maybe takes some of the workload away. I think it is going to be his backfield for the most part. But I mean, I have him in my top 10, so I think he has, the top 10 potential, but he's not somebody that I would feel super comfortable with investing in as my RB1. I think he is more of a low-end RB1 for me, maybe a high-end RB2, as opposed to being like a high-end RB1 where I would have him in my top 7, top 8, guys that I would want to, kind of hitch my wagon to throughout the year. And it's purely a gut thing. Tony Pollard's looked great, but I just have questions. We haven't seen him do it yet, kind of sustain the workhorse load in the offense. So I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. But if I'm drafting, I feel like there's a little bit more upside plays there slightly. Again, that's why I like the idea of tiers, because if you take Gibbs or Pollard, that's a lot closer than maybe I initially thought in a trade like that. But I just have some risk aversion with Pollard.
For dynasty purposes, I would definitely rather Gibbs as well. So you're not off at all there. But redraft, I would much rather have Pollard, just because we have a much better idea of what the workload is, and we've seen him do it. We've seen him be an RB1. We think Gibbs can. We think he has the upside too, but we haven't seen it. So I would rather take the guy that we've seen it. But the other guy I want to touch on in here that was a little different is Travis Etienne. I'm finding it hard to trust Travis Etienne. You seem to trust him fairly significantly to put him inside of your top 12. What gives you that confidence?
Yeah, and great points on Pollard. Like I said, happy to be proven wrong with him. More of a gut thing. ETN. So I did a Dynasty debate article with our friend Michael Warno at Dynasty Nerds. We
Great
did
guy.
Travis Etienne, awesome guy, and Javonte Williams. And I argued for Etienne.
How dare you?
I know. It was literally like, who does Garrett like? And then I'm going to argue against those players.
Yeah,
so
I see that.
That's what I base all my articles around. How can I subtweet or subpost, I guess, Garrett and everything I do with Dynasty Nerds? So,
fair.
But I argue for Etienne, and I will keep arguing for Etienne. Listen, I have been getting a lot of Tank Bigsby in my leagues. So I did write a piece for Dynasty Nerds recently about the Jacksonville Jaguars offense as a whole. So I am high on both Etienne and Bigsby. I think Bigsby's going to have a nice role in that offense, but what we saw Etienne, I know he's got his pass catching capability questions, but what we've seen him do as a runner, how we've seen the Jags rely on him, what I think that offense is going to be doing in general this year in terms of scoring points and being on the goal line and all of that, I just think that while you will see enough Tank Bigsby worked in to be excited about it, I think Etienne is still a very exciting guy for me because he's still the RB1 in what to me is an ascendant offense.
So it's interesting because usually I don't hear this. So you are excited about Tank Bigsby, but you don't think that negatively impacts Travis Etienne.
No, and the simple reason is because of how highly I think of the Jaguars offense as a whole. I think there's going to be enough love to go around for both those guys. Obviously it impacts Etienne in the sense that he's not going to get probably finish top 5, top 7 kind of in that range. Like he's not going to reach his maybe ultimate potential, but simply because of what I think that offense as a whole is going to do this year, I think there's going to be room to get excited about both guys.
So I'm a little bit bearish on Travis Etienne, partly because in a way, I agree with you. I do think Tank Bigsby is a good player. I do think he's going to be involved, maybe not a ton early, but I think he's going to earn more work and do more as the season goes on. But the other problem that I have with Etienne is more him as this is going to sound mean, but him as a player, I struggle with, because while his acceleration is some of the best acceleration that I've ever seen out of a running back, his 0 to 60 is nuts. His vision scared the crap out of me when I really broke it down. And it reflected in my nerd score. And I think it reflects in his fantasy football performances, because he had some awesome games last year against Denver, 24 carries, 156 yards, and a touchdown. And then he had 109 yards and 2 touchdowns, had 3 catches and 2 catches in those games, like really big games for him. But then right after those big games, we saw 11 carries for 45 yards. In a bizarre game, 2 carries for 3 yards, and he wasn't injured. Then we had 13 carries for 54 yards, 17 carries for 32 yards. So then he had 4 straight weeks where he just absolutely cost you. At the end of the season, 7 attempts for 17 yards. So he has this real yo-yo effect where he'll have some really good games, but they're tough to trust because he can break off some nice chunk runs because of acceleration, but his vision isn't consistent enough. And I don't know if the power is consistent enough to be able to consistently give you what you need out of the running back position. So I'm a little bit bearish on Travis Etienne. So we can put up my running back ranks here, and I'll give you guys my top 12. So I already mentioned my top 6. I have CMC, Eckler, Bijan, Chubb, Derrick Henry, and Tony Pollard. Then at 7, I have Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor at 8 and 9. And those are probably a hair lower than I would normally do it, but all of the question marks around them playing, not playing, who they're playing for, all of that was enough to just bump them down a little bit. Still RB1 range, but I have an eyebrow raised to those guys. Najee Harris at 10. Then at 11, Gibbs. So I'm with you. I do like Gibbs. I do have him in the top 12. It's just David Montgomery worries me enough for season long, but you could make an argument right now that Gibbs might be the RB2 in Dynasty. So I think there's an argument to be made there. Now, I'm not sure I'm quite ready to make it myself, but I think he's definitely at least in that conversation. And then at 12, the homie, the boy, the golden child, Javonte Williams. Look, I wasn't going to have him anywhere near 12 to start the year. But when you can be like Wolverine and have steel running through your veins.
Got that adamantium.
That's right. That's right. I mean, this guy, he's pulling something that we haven't seen from anybody other than Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles, elite freak athletes. The fact that he came back and wasn't even on the pup. And then in game 1, no, he didn't make any huge miraculous plays or anything like that, but he looked good. He looked agile. He looked strong. He looked good. But the thing that put it over the top for me, having him more as like running back 15 to putting him in at running back 12, is the pass work usage that we've been seeing out of him. First 3 games before his injury last season, 7 targets per game. Then in this first game back, he had 5 targets in the first quarter. He was an absolute target hog. So if he's going to be used that much in the passing game, I actually think this is not me just trying to show my Javonte bias. I actually think there's a realm with that much passing work and in a Sean Payton offense where running backs can just flourish, where he could be a running back 1. Now, I poo-pooed your Travis Etienne. I will give you the floor to poo-poo my Javonte.
I mean, this was the debate me and Michael had, Etienne and Javonte. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Javonte. If he had never sustained that injury last season, and we have my guy Etienne being one of them. We obviously, in more recent history, medical science has clearly learned something from comic book movies that all of a sudden all these athletes are just superheroes and coming back after, the shortest amount of time possible away from the field. So I have no doubt that Javonte could finish in the top 15 this year. I would not be shocked if it's more of a roller coaster, if you will, as he comes back from injury. To me, that's simply it. I was very high on J.K. Dobbins coming back from his injury, and similarly, I was like, he's got all the talent. He's in this Ravens offense that loves to run and all that. And again, no injury is the same. No 2 injuries are the same. No 2 guys are the same. But I would just have those concerns about the kind of workload and what he's capable of doing right out of the gate for a season-long perspective. I think a fantasy points per game, sure, yeah, if he's playing whole games healthy. But I have him in the top 15. But again, this is where tiers is helpful. And I would like to make one quick amendment before we get off running backs.
Okay.
I think it's important in fantasy football to admit when you're wrong. And I think that I would like to flip, based on your argument, Tony Pollard and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I would like to move Tony Pollard up to 8. And I think I would like to put Gibbs in my 10 spot, because you're right. What I meant is we haven't seen him do it for a whole season yet, but we have seen him do it in large chunks of being the guy in that offense, that Cowboys offense. And I would not want to contradict having Dak in my top 10 either. I think those go hand in hand a little bit. So I do think Gibbs is going to contend with Montgomery and have to grow as a rookie a little bit in that offense. But again, this is why tiers are helpful, because they don't change being in a similar tier for me. but I think rankings wise. So, hey, have your Javonte parade. I'm not here to poo-poo it. He's your guy. Even though you tried to trade him to me in our league, before he got injured, we'll just forget about that. So
It was for Justin Jefferson. It's fair.
And not a 1-for-1, to be clear, but yes.
No, it was not a 1-for-1. All right. So Corey, we have not even gotten to touch on wide receivers or tight ends yet. And this is the part where we normally say goodbye to the first guest. So I'm going to leave it up to you. If you have a busy night, you got things you need to get done, we can say adios here. Thank you for coming. Or if you got more time, you can stay with us through the break and we can get into your wide receivers and tight ends that you have in your top 12.
Garrett, if you'll have me, I would love to keep hanging out and debating our top 12s at each position with you.
Love it. That's why you're the man. All right. So let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we will get over to the wide receiver position.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty fantasy football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format or fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you gotta have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Welcome back in Dynasty Nerd Show on the Better Sports Network. I am Garret Price here with my good friend Corey Easterday, and we are breaking down our top 12s at each position. So we're about to go into the wide receiver position, but before we do, we're almost there, guys. We are almost to the regular season, but there are still drafts happening right now this weekend, all the way leading up to that. What is it? September 7th, September 8th, September 9th, whatever that first game is, one of those days. It's leading all the way up to there. So start your 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and cheat sheet absolutely free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. That is fantasyalarm.com/draft. All right, Corey, we've touched on running backs. We've touched on quarterbacks. Let's get to the wide receptors. Who do you got in your top 6?
Real quick, before I forget, shout out Joe Thomas, Cleveland Browns.
That's right.
Fantasy Football Expo weekend right after the Hall of Fame induction. Just had to shout that out. Love my guy, JT. All right. Top 12 wide receivers. My guy. I love him. Probably my favorite football player, player in fantasy. CD. No, I'm just kidding. It's Justin Jefferson, number 1. overall, no doubt. I think Jamar Chase at 2. I would say Tyreek Hill at 3, and then Cooper Kupp at 4. I know that some folks have that flip, so I would go Jefferson, Chase, Hill, and then Kupp. And then I'm actually going to go with A.J. Brown at my 5 and Stephon Diggs at my 6.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything too crazy there. There was one name. So say it again one more time because I might have missed it because I was reading something on the side. Say those 6 again.
No worries. Justin Jefferson at 1, Jamar Chase at 2, Tyreek Hill at 3, Cooper Kupp at 4, A.J. Brown at 5, and Stephon Diggs at 6.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much consensus for the most part. Nothing stands out to me as too crazy there. There's a couple guys that I think you could argue in that range, but I don't have any issues there. I'm going to wait on doing my top 12 at receiver and tight end. I'm going to save that for when we get to Dennis Bennett. So I'm not going to reveal mine, but I really don't have any issues in there. Now, normally during this time, I answer questions, and I see some questions on the side. So I'm going to answer these in rapid fire so that way I don't leave you guys hanging, but I'm probably not going to pontificate quite like I would. All right. So Red Sox fan, who would you keep? 12-team full PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex. I have the 10th pick. Mahomes in the 3rd, or Brees in the 5th, or Khalil Herbert in the 13th. I would probably be keeping Brees in the 5th. Love Mahomes, but with it not being a super flex, I'm going to prioritize the running back. And I think even though he's going to get a little bit less work this year with Dalvin Cook, you still get the opportunity to hold on to him long-term too. So I would do that. Dylan McKee, 14-team league, offered Ayuk or James Cook. Judy was number 1 wide receiver. Should I accept the trade? So I'm guessing it's Ayuk for James Cook. I would rather have – it's tough in the 14-team league because running backs are very scarce, but let's go with Ayuk. I think he's just the better, more consistent player. Steve, you can use it for redraft. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend it more as their rookie outlook. So I would probably after a year or two let what they've done on the field dictate things more than the nerd score. That's just more to be kind of your base starting point, more so than truly using that later down the road. Engage 10-team PPR, start 10 Superflex. Would you trade Debo for Javonte? That's a really tough. Corey, what do you think on that one? I'm having a hard time with that one.
10-team PPR, Superflex, Debo for Javonte.
I think I want Javonte, but I know I'm biased.
I would actually say yes, because you're buying a little bit low on Javonte at the moment. Debo has more production behind him, but I hate to put it this way, but they're 2 guys that carry similar risks to me, with the injury and availability. So fantasy football is about having fun sometimes. If Javonte's your guy, you like him over Debo, I think it's similar enough. Like I would be fine doing that.
If Javonte isn't your guy, he should be. That's the lesson here. Okay. All right. So I got to all the questions. Like I said, sorry, I didn't get to really break it down like I normally would. But I wanted to make sure I at least answered those. All right, Corey, we got your top 6, and I didn't have any issues. I didn't have any holes to poke, nothing like that. But let's hear 7 through 12 because I got my poker ready.
I'm ready for it.
Right.
Hey, you changed my mind once before. Maybe you'll do it again.
We'll see.
All right. Number 7, Amon-Ra, the Sun God, St. Brown. Number 8, CD Lamb. Number 9, Devontae Adams. Number 10, my guy, who I won't get into it. He's my guy, T. Higgins. Number 10. Wait, did I already say Garrett Wilson?
You did not say Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, number 10. T. Higgins, number 11. Won't do me when I'm wrong. And Jalen Waddle at number 12.
Okay, you read it for me one more time, just making sure you got all of them because I feel like I missed something.
Yep. Amon-Ra at 7, CD at 8, Devontae at 9, Garrett Wilson at 10, T. Higgins at 11, and Jalen Waddle at 12.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah. Overall, your wide receiver rankings are crazy, crazy close to mine, with one big exception. And of course, that's T. Higgins. So I know you love T. Higgins. You've been a big fan of his. And as a player, I think he's a fantastic player. We've yet to see him enter that wide receiver 1 range. What gives you that feeling that this is the year?
I'm trying to contain my excitement right now because I could talk about T. Higgins for like the next hour of the show, and I don't want to do my guy.
We'll give you 3 minutes.
I'll do 30 seconds.
Okay.
He is, and I've written extensively about T. Higgins on Dynasty Nerds. He is I understand what last year was. Believe me, I understand the frustration that last year was because I was leaning on him in a lot of leagues, but he is still a wide receiver 1, functioning as a wide receiver 2 in that offense next to Jamar Chase. If you get on Twitter, X, on the fantasy football community for even a couple minutes, and you just pull up T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, you will see post after post after post comparing these two guys' stats, how in some aspects over the years, T. Higgins has outperformed Jamar Chase, or it's at least neck and neck, 50-50. Jamar Chase is ahead. It's not by a ton. Last year, Jamar Chase outpaced T. Higgins a little bit more just because of injuries and all that. But the point being, they have both performed as wide receiver 1s in that offense. T. Higgins, to me, is a wide receiver 1 on many other teams. I just think, again, the Bengals, I think fantasy football can be really simple sometimes. Get the best offenses, get guys from those offenses on your team, and ride those real-life great NFL offenses throughout your fantasy season. To me, along with the Jaguars, the Bengals are one of those fantasy football offenses to get a piece of. I think T. Higgins is firmly in place for me as a top 12 wide receiver, if you want to argue where he's at in that pole position. But if he stays healthy all year, I think it would not be shocking for me to see him finish in the top 12, top 10 from a fantasy points per game basis, because if that offense is going to be what I think it's going to be this season and keep firing on all cylinders, be a Super Bowl contender, T. Higgins, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to benefit greatly from that.
Yeah, and I'm actually a big fan of T. Higgins as well. I think he is a super, super talented player. And dynasty-wise, I have no problem ranking him as a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, even though I question how soon he will be an actual wide receiver 1. If you can give me somebody that is going to be wide receiver of 13 to 18 for the next 5 years, that's a wide receiver 1 to me. Now, I know they technically never finished there, but that is good, consistent production that I would rather have that than a guy that gives me wide receiver 6, wide receiver 11, and then is wide receiver 24 plus all the other years. Like, I would rather have that consistent work. On top of that, dynasty-wise, and I know that we said redraft extravaganza, and I'm saying dynasty, but just deal with it. He might not be a Bengal next year. And so he might be on another team where he does get a ridiculous amount of targets. But even if not, he's in a good situation either way. So I'm a fan of him long-term, but I do have a few questions, a few worries about him making it inside the top 12 this year. Ramen says calling for 2 different teams to have 2 wide receiver 1s. And yeah, that's something that has become a little more common, where it used to never happen. There just wasn't enough passing volume in the league. But we've seen a lot of different teams, a lot of different combos, both have wide receiver 1 seasons recently. So, but normally it's been 1 set, not necessarily 2. So that is a little bit on the odd side, but spoiler alert, I actually have 2 in mine as well, and it is not the same 2. So it'll be really interesting to talk through that. All right, let's move on to the tight end position, and let's preface this talk a little bit here with, look, if we talk about the tight end 1, just because they finish as a top 12 guy in a 12-team league does not really make them a tight end 1, because the value difference in points per game from a guy at tight end 6 on is roughly the same. Like, there's really not much of a difference. It's those top 5, 6 guys, and then even more so Travis Kelce above everyone else, that are just true difference makers. So once you really get to that 6, 7 range, it's a coin flip with a lot of different guys. So I could imagine that our bottom 6 might look a lot different. Now, like I said, I'm not going to reveal my top 6, and I'm going to save that portion for when Dennis gets here. We'll talk about it then. But Corey, why don't you just give me straight through? Well, no, give me your top 6, and then we'll talk about the other guys afterward.
Yeah. So obviously, number 1, probably for the next 10 years into his mid 40s, because he's one of these freak athletes, is Travis Kelce, who I traded away because I was, I thought he didn't have a lot of years left in Dynasty or whatever, and he's, been elite for the next like 3-4 years or whatever. Just
he's
nonstop.
Moved several teams since then.
No decline. Yeah. Well, exactly. So I'm not the only one, but all right. Travis Kelce 1. My guy, who I've also loved and written a lot about, Mark Andrews at 2. I think, again, we're talking about these offenses that are like to the moon. TJ Hawkinson at 3. I think the Vikings are on the up and up offensively this year. Controversial maybe, Kyle Pitts at 4. George Kittle at 5. And I would say Dallas Goedert at 6. Or no, take that back. Darren Waller at 6. So Kelce, Andrews, Hawkinson, Kittle, Kelce, Andrews, Hawkinson, Pitts, Kittle, Waller.
Yeah. And I think really the debate is going to be kind of around 3 guys for the most part. It's going to be Pitts, Kittle, and Goddard, like how you order those, who gets in the top 6, who doesn't. So I'm assuming that means for you, Goddard is at 7 then, right?
Correct. Yeah, I would go Goddard and then Evan Ingram. I would say Pat Freiermuth at 9, David Njoku at 10. I'm going to stop myself from naming Chigokonkwo in this top 12. Probably, you know what? Forget it. Let's go crazy. I'm going to say Chigokonkwo at 11 because I think he's going to have a big year. And then I would say rounding out the top 12. Boy, this is tough because the tight end position gets really bleak really quickly. You know what? It's Dynasty Nerds. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to give it to a rookie. I'm going to say Sam Laporta at 12.
Wow. I thought that meant you were going Dalton Kincaid, but no. Sam Laporta. I like it.
Sorry, I mispronounced Dalton Kincaid.
There you go.
Dalton Kincaid at 12. I'm not that crazy.
So dated fork with the longtime Dynasty Nerds reference where Leonard Fournette always kept getting listed as any other position other than running back. And we have Leonard Fournette as a top 5 tight end this year, as he should be. All right. So Chigokonkwo is interesting because he was kind of a dynasty darling for a bit. Then the DeAndre Hopkins news happened, and he kind of plummeted a little bit in value. And with the recent Kyle Phillips news, I feel like that train is starting to pick up some steam a little bit again. Josh, what's up, buddy? So how are you feeling about Chigokonkwo? Does it have anything to do with the Kyle Pitts injury, or is it just I've been on the train, I haven't left the train, I'm the conductor, woot woot?
I'm not the conductor because I didn't get him in our Dynasty debate series. I got stuck with Cole Kmet, who I do think is going to have a good year, but I would take Chig in that debate. But I am on the train. I've been on the train. I never left the train because I weirdly kind of grew up as a Titans fan for whatever reason, in addition to my Browns fandom. And so I followed the team closely.
In addition to your Panthers fandom?
In addition to listen, when you're a Browns fan, you got to hedge your bets a little bit, okay? It's been pretty bleak. Let's be honest.
It's fair, but of all the teams to hedge your bets with, like maybe the Patriots, maybe the Chiefs.
No. Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. No, come on, Steve McNair, Eddie George, like that was the duo coming up.
Sure.
Okay, so no, but I've been on the train, never left the train. I think he showed us a lot last season, and just simply put, reflected in all of my rankings basically that I gave you. And I know this is kind of the purpose of rankings, but sometimes it's finding that balance of what we've seen a guy do versus where we think he's going to go, because you have to try to be at least somewhat predictive. That's why some of the rankings can seem like, wait, what? That's kind of high on a guy. But Chig is one of those guys for me where, based on the flashes that we got last season, the important role I think he's going to have in that offense, what Mike Vrabel likes to do just in general, the way the Titans have utilized their tight ends, and his athletic skill set. I mean, on and down the list, like, he just has a lot of check boxes for me of being able to succeed at the tight end position, not the least of which is he's just going to be on the field a ton. He's going to be great at blocking. He's going to play a lot of key roles for them, and I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. And they don't have a ton of offensive weapons,
Yeah, I do think with the injury to Kyle Phillips, even though Chig does a good job of getting downfield more than other tight ends do, they are two guys that I could have seen canceling each other out a little bit. So this does open up things for him a little bit. So I'm with you. I have no problem with him sneaking into the top 12. I didn't get him in my top 12, but then again, you could give me almost any top 12 tight end ranking, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I could see that happening. It is really, really tough.
That was my Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta thing. I'm like, they're both rookie tight ends. We know historically the struggle of rookie tight ends. Like, flip a coin, I guess.
Now, do you really think one of those two could get in? And if so, which one do you have more confidence in?
It would be Kincaid, simply because of what he's stepping into down in the Bills. We've seen how quickly did he get drafted, and where Dawson Knox completely fell off the fantasy radar, which is to point out that Bills offense and what they're doing brought Dawson Knox onto the fantasy radar and made him somebody that we were having a lot of conversation about as a top 12 tight end the last few years. So why not get a talented young rookie in there? I think he could fill a similar role. The struggle with rookie tight ends, like, I'm sure there'll be at least one in the top 12, but Musgrave, Laporta, Kincaid, all these guys, this is one of the most talented tight end classes we've seen in a long time. So if it was gonna happen, for a rookie tight end to ascend this year and be a really great fantasy asset in redraft, this would be the year. So it's kind of like flip a coin, but I would have to lean Kincaid for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely got the size. He's got the offense. He's got the draft pedigree. We'll see. But I like Sam Laporta quite a bit. They're a little bit different because you've got that more long, lanky, go up and get the football, wide receiver type out of Kincaid. Where Laporta, he's like a run after the catch guy. Like, he catches the football, and then he can actually do something with it, where you don't see that a lot out of tight ends. It's usually catch it, and they're more or less falling down wherever they catch it. Whereas Sam Laporta, he's a weapon in the receiving game. So it's a really interesting one there. So Data Fork, I will be releasing my wide receivers and my tight end top 12s when I talk to Dennis. So I will give you my favorite best ball guys. And there are a few of them. It is a little bit more of a shotgun approach for me in best ball. If I'm not getting that top guy, I like to take several guys later on in drafts. So we'll touch on that in just a little bit here. So Corey, we mentioned in the onset there was a little miscommunication here, and you have, first of all, done fantastic being able to, on the fly, regurgitate top 12s at positions. But you did say you made a top 12 list overall for redraft. I would be curious to hear that top 12 list.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick on the last note on the tight ends, I know it's Redraft Extravaganza. I got to give some love to my guy, Isaiah Likely. I'm going to keep banging that drum. All right. I love Mark Andrews, but Isaiah Likely's coming up, and you're going to want to get on that train sooner than later. Trust me. Still developing, but I love my guy. And Dalton Schultz. God, what happened to that guy? All right. So top 12 PPR rankings. Overall, I had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Bijan Robinson, Travis Kelce, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, and Stephon Diggs.
All right, so let's touch on Kelce real quick, because there really wasn't any point in talking about him in the one, in where we rank him in tight ends, because obviously he's the top guy. Like, there's no debate. There's no question about that. But I do like hearing where people have Kelce in the overall rankings, because he is one of the true difference makers. So you had him at what, 8?
Yes.
8. So where's the highest you would feel comfortable taking him? Is it there at 8? Would you feel comfortable taking him earlier than that? Because he is a huge difference maker, but it's tough to take a tight end that early and not load up on other positions. So it's a tough one. And Ramen, appreciate the love, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, in the first round of your PPR redraft, like whatever your league format is, especially if you're doing snake draft, even an auction draft, like that's your chance to like go after your guys, like get who you want to get. And so when you ask me the ceiling of where I would take Kelce, if he's your guy, you think he's going to continue to finish as far and away the tight end 1 going into this season, I actually wouldn't be that upset with taking him at number 1 overall, because you're not going to get another chance. If he's your guy at 1, he's not coming back to you at your next pick, probably regardless. If you're in an auction draft, like spend some high up there to get Kelce, go stars and scrubs route in an auction draft, have Kelce, a couple other studs, and build the rest, cobble it together with some value. But the point being, the fun aspect of fantasy football, I know we focus a lot on value and ADP, and those things are absolutely important. Mm-hmm. But in that first round, if one of these guys in the top 12 is your guy, because what do we see every year in, year out in fantasy football? These guys that are on our top 12 overall list, we think are going to be top 10 at the position. There is always movement with the quarterback, maybe not so much quarterback. It depends. There's a little bit less fluctuation overall, but especially wide receiver and running back, you tend to see a good bit of fluctuation based on guys really outperforming their ADPs or underperforming, whatever. So all that to say, Kelce, he's going to be your tight end 1. Like, that's a position you can have locked down. If he's your guy, have fun with it. Take him wherever you want in the first round. But if we're just talking ADP and value-wise, I would feel more comfortable. Like, I have a draft coming up this weekend. I have the number 1 pick. I would look to trade back to 7, 8, whatever. I feel comfortable taking Kelce in that range, acquiring a few other assets to help me kind of build, since that puts you at a disadvantage of other positions. But, have fun with it. The first round is your chance to get your guy.
Yeah, no, I think you put that excellently. It's Travis Kelce, the positional advantage. You can make a strong argument for him being the top overall player. Will I do that? Probably not. But I think that you can make a very good argument for him being up that high. So the value that you get at tight end, and just the difference maker when you're going up, even against Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, like top tier guys, you're still looking at an average of 4 or 5 points difference between other top tier guys over the course of a season. So it really is just the biggest advantage. And it doesn't look like that's going to change this year. They got rid of the guy that got the most targets on their team last year in Juju Smith-Schuster. As much as I love Sky Moore, and I'm going to preach the good news of Sky Moore, it's still going to be the Travis Kelce show. Engage saying he likes this format. Good job. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for the love. Steve saying, I think it's easier to take Kelce when you condition yourself to say you are getting a wide receiver 1 who plays tight end. And that is an absolute truth. Very, very smart right there from my man, Steve. All right. Corey, any other comments you want to make about redraft this year before we get you out of here?
Only to say I had an incredible time doing this with you and being on the show. And thank you so much, everybody, for hanging with us, chatting, asking questions. This has been the highlight of my week, getting to hang out here on the show with you. The only comment, lastly, that I want to say is based on our Brotherhood Dynasty League rookie and free agent draft that we saw each other in person last week or a couple weeks ago. I'm just purely shocked that you don't have Tajay Spears in your top 10 running backs in every format, honestly. So,
I'm glad you brought that up. Over the break, I'll make sure to fix it. Get him inside the top 10. It's going to be Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, and then DJ Dallas.
That's the
So,
clear top 3. Yeah, easily.
clear top 3. Any other top 3 is completely invalid. So, all right. Well, Corey, plug your stuff, man. What do you got going on? What are you into? Doesn't even have to be your fantasy football stuff. Tell us what you have going on.
Yeah, so everyone, please follow me on social media. I am at Corey Easterday on the X, which is always weird to say. And I am at the Easter Dude on all other platforms. So on Twitter, I'm going to call it Twitter especially, a lot of content around fantasy football, dynastynerds.com. I've been with these guys, the Nerd Herd, for the last 2 years since 2021. So you just type in Corey Easterday in the search there on dynastynerds.com. You get all kinds of content and pieces and dynasty debates and all that good stuff. I have a podcast called the Easter Pod that Garrett has appeared on graciously back when it first started. We do, like, I just had a former NFL player on one of the recent episodes. So we do some sports. We've done some fantasy stuff in the past, but it's primarily a lifestyle podcast, kind of get to know people's stories across a variety of industries. That's called the Easter Pod. Check that out. I work for a nonprofit, Current Initiatives. We do an initiative called the Laundry Project in 18 states, meant to help families meet a tangible need through clean clothes. And my wife and I co-own a business, Easterday Creative. So Dynasty Nerds, Easter Pod, Easterday Creative, Current Initiatives. Your boy stays busy. So many places you can connect.
Love it. You are all over the place. So yes, please follow him on Twitter/X at Corey Easterday. You will not be disappointed. Thank you so much for joining me, buddy. I really appreciate it.
This was a blast. Love you, Garrett. Thank you so much.
Love you too, man. We'll catch you later. All right. Well, I want to remind you guys again that the Fantasy Alarm All Pro subscription is out there and ready to be had. You just have to go out there and seize this opportunity of getting a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All Pro subscription and getting the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet absolutely free when you subscribe. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. That is fantasyalarm.com/draft. We will be back momentarily. When we are going to keep crushing this redraft extravaganza by talking our top 12s. We'll hear Dennis Bennett's top 12s along with my wide receiver and tight end top 12s when we are back here on the Better Sports Network.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Hey! Come on! Let's go! Come on, kick it! Dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire. Over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool! The champ is here! Keith, What was it like being out there, adrenaline rush? You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no!
on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations. And no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
Oh, we are back. Yes, we are. This is the Dynasty Nerd Show. I am your host, Garret Price, and we've got the main man at Culture Coach on the Twitter, on the X, Dennis Bennett. Dennis, how's it going, man?
You know, I am having a fantastic day.
I love to hear it.
Been looking forward to it all day. Had the air on in the studio in time, so it's not too warm with this crazy heat. So rocking a little Motley Crue. Took my 12-year-old to see Motley Crue last week at Ohio Stadium. So
how was it?
It was great. I love Motley Crue. It's like the 4th time I've seen them.
That's awesome. Now, if I remember correctly, your oldest, you dropped him off at college this past week. Is that correct?
We did. My wife
How
has
was
seen
that?
him every day since.
So it wasn't really much of a drop off. It was just like you were
she
there while he
worked at
put his
Ohio
foot down.
State. He's going to Ohio State. You know, he's been home a couple times. Said he's not coming home this weekend, but he said that last weekend. So we'll see. His classes have started. He's settling in. So
good for him.
His band is rehearsing out here at the neighbor's house. So, you know, we're going to see him a couple times a week, regardless of what goes on. But I'm doing my best to let go. I only look at the Life 360 tracker about 45 times a day.
I get it. We have that at my house too. Denise even put on like the alerts every time I leave the home. She's like, I just don't want anything to happen to you. So I understand that as well. All right, Dennis, we had Mr. Corey Easterday on earlier, and we were talking top 12s. Now, we got his, and I gave my quarterbacks and running backs, but I saved my wide receivers and tight ends because we'll touch on those guys when we get to those positions. But, Dennis, let's start at the quarterback position. Give me your top 6 guys, and then we'll get to your next 6 to round out your top 12.
So I can't find any reason to not make Patrick Mahomes number 1. I mean, it was last year. It was like, oh, it's going to be the year he's dethroned. He doesn't have a Tyreek Hill is gone. He only went out with, you, me, and Tyler at wide receiver and still was QB1. So I think Sky Moore is going to have a good year this year. He's been there. He's embraced. He's in the offense now. He knows it. And I think he's going to settle in. I think Tony, while he's healthy, he's going to make some big plays. MVS does what MVS does. He's going to catch a few big shots. Rashee Rice is reportedly picking up the offense really well. So they're going to have some weapons. Jerick McKinnon's back. Pacheco's back. And of course, Kelsey. So I find no reason to not have Mahomes at 1. I've got Jalen Hurts at 2. He was 3 last year. It's a very narrow funnel with Philadelphia. It's Brown, it's Smith. Goddard gets more than a lot of tight ends, but it's really Brown and Smith. Hurts gets a lot of the rushing touchdowns, very productive. I think he's going to continue to mature. They've got a really good offensive line. I just gave him the edge over Allen this year. I got Allen at 3. He's still that dude. They added Dalton Kincaid to kind of play that. I guess they call the offense when Kincaid is in there, they call it the 2.5, because they got 2.5 wide receivers with Kincaid
Sure.
and Diggs. So I like the offense. I'm curious to see how Damian Harris works in with James Cook. You know, they didn't throw the ball a ton to the receivers, but I think Cook is primed up. I saw somebody tweet today. They said, you know, what if James Cook is just like young Dalvin Cook? I'm like, hey, what if? You know, could be. Joe Burrow at number 4. Great weapons. Tyler Boyd is one of the best wide receiver 3s. And then you got Higgins and Chase. I'm not worried about the calf injury. Burrow has ran less since he had the ankle injury, and he does it with his arm. They brought in Irv Smith. You know, Irv was a darling a couple years ago. Never really was a thing. We'll see how it works out. Number 5, I got Justin Herbert in that Kellen Moore offense. We're going to see where it goes. I think the Chargers probably have the best foursome of wide receivers in the NFL with Keenan Allen, Big Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, and Quentin Johnston. Gerald Everett, very solid tight end. And then there's always 100 targets going to Austin Eckler as well. Looks like Joshua Kelly is starting to step into the role and the thumper role there for a little bit. And Isaiah Spiller seems to be stepping up as well. So it looks like they're going to be in pretty good shape. And then I've got Lamar at 6. Am I buying the, Monken's going to have him throwing it all over the place? No. But Lamar, he could run for 900 yards. He could still throw 25 to 28 touchdowns. He's got Mark Andrews. I like OBJ there. I find myself in best ball drafts grabbing OBJ all the time. And if I end up going Andrews and Lamar pairing them up in best ball, I try to target OBJ as well. You know, is OBJ, he's 30 years old. But man, if he's on, he's a dynamic player. Is he what he was 5 years ago? No, we'd be silly to think that. But I love OBJ's potential this year, and the price is just so cheap, it's hard to pass up. So I think that overall they're going to pass a little more. We've seen Lamar have an extremely efficient season when he won the MVP. Is he going to be that efficient? Probably not. But I think he's going to be a little better passing.
Yeah, overall, I love that, Dennis. And it looks like our guy dropped the mic. FF is in here. How's it going, man? Steve said he enjoyed the Talking Dynasty episode. Appreciate that. Jared and I have worked really hard on that. And on the Zay Flowers thing, obviously I'm going to be biased because I have 50% of the nerd score. So I err that way. And I was the guy that was even a little bit higher on Zay Flowers than Jared was. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you think is best. So, you know, do your homework on him, watch the tape, dig into the numbers, whatever your process is. But I do like Zay Flowers, and I think he's shown out pretty well so far in preseason as well. So getting back to your top 6 though, Dennis, I don't really have any issues with it. We're really close on that. And we can even, if you want to, Tyler, since you're back, let's put my top 12 quarterbacks back up there. Really the only difference is I had Fields in my top 6 and you didn't. That was the only difference. Lamar just missed my top 6. So I have, actually, no, that would put Lamar at 6. So Burrow was the one that I didn't have out there. I have him down a little bit. We'll see about the calf injury. He doesn't run I'm worried about him running as much as some of the other guys. So I have him down a little bit further. So I have Fields at 4, Herbert, then Lamar. So who do you have in your 7 to 12?
So I actually have Justin Fields at 7. I think he's going to take a step as a passer. No, I don't expect him to have a 2019 or 2017, whatever Lamar's MVP season was. He's not going to throw 36 touchdowns. But I think he's going to be better. They added DJ Moore, and that's going to be that gives them a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. He's probably going to be a wide receiver 2 for fantasy. I like Darnell Mooney. He provides that deep threat. He's really better suited to be a 2. I like Khalil Herbert in the running game. Roshan Johnson, I think, is coming along. We've got Foreman there. I'm buying into Cole Kmet a little bit.
Yeah.
He's been a guy, like, if I don't get one of the elite tight ends, one of the top 3 tight ends, and I'm in best ball and I'm going to go with a 3 tight end build, I'm looking at Kmet as a second tight end. So I'm buying it a little bit. I think they've got it good enough depth. It's going to be with Field. He's going to run the ball. He's probably going to lead the league in rushing for a quarterback. It's going to be between him and Richardson. Richardson didn't throw the ball great tonight, but he's a rookie with not a lot of starts coming into the NFL. But I got Justin Fields at number 7. I like what he brings to the table. I got Trevor Lawrence at 8. And so really for me, this top 8, there's the Patrick Mahomes tier, and then the next 7 are relatively close. I think Lawrence is ready to take a step. I like the weapons they have around him. Adding Tank Bigsby gives that backfield some power that it didn't have last year. And with Calvin Ridley stepping in and taking over that alpha receiver role, he's looked good in the preseason. I like what they've done with Evan Ingram. They've got Christian Kirk. And, you can't just write Kirk off. They paid him good money. They're going to get him the ball too. And Zay Jones, good third wide receiver. So I like the weapons that Lawrence has. And he's much like Herbert. He's a sneaky good runner. 6'6", long strider with decent speed. He can put some yards up on the ground and help himself out for fantasy. Number 9, I've got Deshaun Watson. This is looking back at what he was for about 5 straight years and thinking he couldn't have just forgot how to play. I know he looked a little crusty last year, and that's to be expected with that layoff. Things are still coming together this spring or this preseason. I think he's going to be fine. I like where he's at. I like that Tillman's coming along. Elijah Moore seems to pop. Amari Cooper's the unquestioned one. David Njoku, I love him at tight end. Like, he's back there in that range there with Cole Kmet. Like, if I'm doing those 3 tight end builds, those are guys that I love back there. And then I think Nick Chubb is going to get. I think he's going to set a personal high for pass receptions this year.
I think you're right.
This and we'll probably talk about it a little later if we talk running backs. But I got Deshaun Watson at 9, Tua Tagovailoa at 10. Another quarterback with a narrow funnel of receivers, and he's got 2 elite receivers along the same lines as Jalen Hurts. But Tua's not going to run. He shouldn't be running. Practice that judo roll and get your butt down there, son.
That's right.
But Tua could throw 40 touchdowns this year if he's healthy.
Absolutely good.
If they get Jonathan Taylor, who knows what the heck could happen. At number 11, I've got Dak Prescott. I really like the addition of Brandon Cooks. I think that takes some of the veteran pressure off of CeeDee Lamb and will allow him to be that wide receiver 1 that we all think he is. Michael Gallup, the splash play guy, getting down the field, making some big plays, getting in the end zone. I like Jake Ferguson at tight end, Luke Schoonmaker. And they believe in Tony Pollard, and he looked great last year receiving and running the ball. For them to have not signed a running back yet, I think that kind of tells us they believe. And so I think Pollard's going to get a big workload this year, and a significant amount of it's going to be passing. So I like Dak Prescott at number 11. And then I've got Kirk Cousins at 12. Justin Jefferson is the guy that leads the way there. I know Hawk is kind of holding in. He wants a new contract. I think their offense is going to be a little more pass heavy. Alexander Madison isn't Dalvin Cook. He's going to be a serviceable back. They're going to run Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride some. Kene Nwangwu will be in there as well. I like Jordan Addison I think he's going to be real nice as a 2 with Jefferson pulling double coverage. And I don't think double coverage is a issue for Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to have another exceptional season. And then KJ Osborne is a nice wide receiver 3. I've got Kirk up at 12 because I just think the passing volume is going to be there.
Well, he consistently puts up really good numbers. So overall, ours are fairly close. Obviously, I'm a little lower on Burrow than you. And then I had Richardson in where you had Kirk. I have Kirk at 13. So we're pretty darn close. And those two guys I actually like to pair up. You get the safety of of Kirk Cousins, but then the upside of an Anthony Richardson. So no problem there. Now for running backs, let's go ahead. Just give me your top 6. And then I just want to see if I have any ones that we need to talk about, because I know that we still need to get to the wide receivers, which I haven't shared mine yet, or the tight end. So we're gonna run a little tight on time. So give me your top 6, and let me just see if I have any issue with any of them.
All right. So in RB1, got Nick Chubb.
Ooh, okay. Actually, we got to stop right away, because I have no issue with that, but that's definitely a hot take. So why do you think Chubb's going to be the top guy? Because I have him at 4, even though I want to put him higher.
So I think Chubb is in line for 1,500 plus rushing yards. I like Jerome Ford, don't get me wrong, but Jerome Ford isn't Kareem Hunt yet. He's not going to step into a decent volume passing role. He's not going to be out there every third series taking touches away from Nick Chubb. This is going to be like, to me, this feels like a get Nick Chubb now, use him this year, sell him at the end of this season in Dynasty, because we know how it is. His career high in carries was last season at 302. So he's probably looking at 350 plus carries this year. His high in targets was his second year at 49 with 36 receptions. I feel like he's looking at a 50 reception season. So we're probably looking at 12 to 15 touchdowns out of him combined, maybe more. I just think he's set up to have that year this season. I know we've got the weapons with Amari Cooper, and they traded for Elijah Moore, and Cedric Tillman looks good. But at his core, Kevin Stefanski wants to run the ball. And he's got one of the best pure runners in the NFL. And so they may throw it in certain situations to loosen things up. But Chubb, I think, is going to grind it out. And he's going to – I like him to pull off the RB1 this year.
Yeah, no, I love it. That would be amazing. So who do you got the other 5 in your top 6 after him?
So I have Austin Eckler at 2. I know he's been I'm a little uneasy about it just because of his age. He's not necessarily happy with his contract situation. He's been trying for 3 years now to get them to hand the ball to somebody else. And it seems like Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller have come along to a point that they may do it more. But he's got a nose for the end zone. Him catching 100 passes isn't a big deal. They're going to use him. I like that Kellen Moore runs a high-powered offense. So I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. I got McCaffrey at 3. So any one of these top 3 could be the RB1. And if you came to me and said, Dennis, you're crazy, it's going to be McCaffrey, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, he's, to me, the San Francisco offense, I think, is McCaffrey and one of Ayuk, Debo, or Kittle on any given week. And 65% of one of the other two. The third guy is going to, it's going to be like playing whack-a-mole to figure out which one is going to get the short straw on any particular week. So I've got McCaffrey at RB3. I got Bijan at 4. I think he's going to get plenty of volume. They're going to run the ball a lot. He's looked great in the passing game. I think he goes in there. Tyler Algier is not just going to go away, but he's also not a threat to Bijan Robinson's production. And, Taylor Heineke throws a lot of hospital balls. And Desmond Ridder, I know he's starting the season, but I feel like we're going to see some quarterback roulette this year. You keep hearing about Pitts and seeing clips of Pitts in London making these miraculous catches. Ritter's got to get the ball in the catch radius a little more towards the center. Hit some bullseyes, not out at the rim. So I've got Bijan at 4. I got Saquon at 5. he's the show there. Waller's going to do a lot. The wide receivers need to shake out, but Saquon's easily a guy that could rush for 1,200 yards and catch 75 balls. He's the back to have in New York. And I got Tony Pollard at number 6. Like I mentioned earlier, they seem to be telling us by their actions with the backup running backs that we're happy with these guys to spell him occasionally. We're going to give him the ball. And so I've got Pollard at 6.
Yeah. No, once again, we're not super far off. Only difference here is, our top 4 are mixed up a little bit. Obviously, I had Chubb at 4. Then I had CMC, Eckler, Bijan. Then I had Derrick Henry in my top 6, and then Tony Pollard at 6. So not too far off. Saquon Barkley is at 7 for me. So give me the list of your 7 through 12 guys. Just list them off for me, and we'll see if there's any that stick out.
So I have Derrick Henry at 7.
Okay.
I just think with the improved passing game, he's going to get a little less work in Tyjae Spears and Julius Chestnut. Jonathan Taylor at 8, Najee Harris at 9, Josh Jacobs at 10, Ramondre Stevenson at 11, and Joe Mixon at 12.
All right, so let's touch on Ramondre real quick, because he's somebody that I'm having a hard time with, because on one hand, I'm not scared of Ezekiel Elliott. Like, I don't think he's a real threat. On the other hand, it is the Patriots. They do silo guys at certain times and certain points. So with Ramondre Stevenson at 11, do you think he's going to be getting a similar workload that he got last year?
Yeah, he had 69 receptions last year. He's not going to lose that role there. And he carried the ball 210 times. I know Bill likes to run the ball and he likes veterans. Stevenson is a dynamic back. Zeke may get double-digit touchdowns, but Ramondre didn't make his points on touchdowns last year. So Ramondre will maintain his RB1 role. Zeke will get the tough yards because he's actually better at that than Ramondre. So when they need 2 yards, they're going to give the ball to Zeke. But when they need to get 7 yards on a screen pass or a short pass to the back, that's going to Ramondre. Ramondre is a dynamic runner. He's got good contact balance. Are there things he could improve? Sure. I think all the backs could improve some. But I think he's going to maintain his role. And, RB11, let's see, what did he finish last year? He finished at RB11 with 210 carries, 1,040 yards, 5 touchdowns, 69 receptions, 421 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he only scored 6 touchdowns. If he beefs that up by 2 or 3 and gets 225, 230 carries, along with 65 receptions, I think he should cruise to an RB11 season.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Another one that I've seen in top 12s quite a bit, but you don't have in yours, unless I missed hearing it. Jahmyr Gibbs. Did you have Gibbs in your top 12?
I have Jahmyr Gibbs at 13.
Okay, so what kept him out? Was it the David Montgomery factor?
It's a little bit of the inconsistency of Jared Goff overall. The home road split thing scares me a little bit. The passing offense right now is Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it's pretty easy to key on. So there could be a little bit of game script stuff that takes him out of it. I like him a lot. And would it surprise me if he caught 80 balls like Kamara? Not one bit. I would be, it would throw me, honestly, as a Lions fan.
Sure.
I have high hopes for him. He's super dynamic. And if he finished at RB8, it wouldn't surprise me. They drafted him at 12 and they plan to use him, but he is 199 pounds. And so there's a cap on how many times you can slam him into the line and hope he comes out the other side unscathed. He's a great receiver. I think he's going to do a lot of good things there. And going into the season with Jamison Williams out, hanging your hat on Marvin Jones and Josh Reynolds and a rookie tight end, he may get early season. He may grab a hold of that number 2 passing option role and run with it and keep it. And that would be phenomenal.
Yeah. All right. Let's move over to the wide receiver position. And Tyler, if you want, you can go ahead and put my wide receivers up on the screen as we talk about it. But Dennis, give me your top 6, or actually, while we're just give me your top 12, and let's see where if we have any differences here, because I feel like mine are somewhat chalky, but I'm curious to hear what you have.
So I just took your top 3 and rolled the dice. Top 4 and rolled the dice, and they came up in a different order.
Okay.
I've got Jamar Chase at 1. I just feel like he's a little bit he hasn't been fully healthy his first couple years. It seems to always be something, whether it's Burrow getting hurt or Chase getting dinged up. I feel like he's going to have a true third-year breakout. And when they were at LSU, Chase was the better receiver. Now, I love Justin Jefferson, but Chase was the guy there. I think him and Burrow, we're going to see what it truly looks like for them to go off this year. I've got Jefferson at 2. Enough said. He's the top dog. He's been the top dog for a couple years. I just think Chase is going to step over him. Got Tyreek Hill at 3. I love for him to be able to I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. And again, it's a very narrow funnel in Miami when it comes to passing targets. Got Cooper Kupp at 4. I have a little bit of pause because I'm not sure how healthy Matthew Stafford will stay this year. I think we're watching the sunset on him. I don't see him playing into his 40s like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. At 5, I got Garrett Wilson. We've seen it in the past where Aaron Rodgers will feed his wide receiver 1 to no end. He just keeps stuffing that dude with the football. We've seen it with Devontae Adams. Wilson is his new Devontae Adams. Corey Davis retired. Randall Cobb, what's he got left in the tank? Mecole Hardman. All right, let's be for real. Alan Lazard is one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL. He had his shot to be the wide receiver 1, and it went meh. So it's going to be Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. At 6, I've got Stephon Diggs. He's still the top dog, and with their flirtation with DeAndre Hopkins this offseason, we saw Diggs go into pout mode. They know they got to get that dude the ball, or he's going to get all whiny in the media and throw a hissy fit. So he's going to get the ball. CD Lamb at number 7. I love Lamb. I think he's going to be the guy. If you're only going to get one guy in Dallas, you want Lamb. But if you're one of those guys that are like, what's the cheaper option look like? I'm okay taking Cooks and passing on Lamb, but Lamb's going to put up some points this year. I've got him at 7. Got Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8. Like I said, he's the show when it comes to wide receivers in Detroit. A.J. Brown at 9. He was 6th last year. I just think, again, it's another situation of a narrow funnel of targets. And while I don't think they're going to pass the ball quite as often as Miami does, Brown has showed us he's one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL. He gets yards. He gets touchdowns. He's a horse. Got Jalen Waddle at number 10. Back to the narrow funnel. Him and Hill, they're so dynamic. Devontae Adams at 11. I want to put Adams higher. I just have no faith in Josh McDaniel and the Raiders QB situation. It's going to be. It was weird last year, and he still had a ton of targets. I think he's going to be fine. What was he? He was wide receiver 3 last year.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I do believe that there's been a decline in their quarterback situation. And at 12, I've got Devontae Smith. There's just he's going to get targets, and he's the Slim Reaper kills it.
Well, we have the exact same top 12 and the names on there. And obviously the order is slightly different, but we have the same guys in there, which it's a little different having, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So 2 wide receiver 1s on the same team, which they were last year. and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but it happened last year. So I mean, these are not things that are normal for fantasy football, but this is just simply history repeating itself in this situation. Garrett Wilson is obviously the one that's a little bit high compared to what consensus is, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. He could easily be the kind of guy that enters into that elite tier, that elite threshold. I do have Diggs a little lower than consensus, and part of that is just, guys do tend to get a little bit older. Maybe a couple of those big plays just don't happen like they did in the past. So I just have a slight regression for Adams and Diggs this year. So just a little bit lower from where they would have finished in the past. But overall, we're pretty darn close on wide receiver. So I don't think we have a ton to talk about and discuss. But I do want to at least ask you real quick about Amon-Ra. I have him a little bit higher than you. Not much, just a couple spots. What are your feelings on him? Because when we're looking at a total year, I mean, he could have a monster season, but could mainly be, not for sure, but that could mainly be because of the beginning of the season when Jameson Williams isn't there and Laporta and Gibbs are kind of just getting used to the offense, and Jared Goff goes to old reliable, but then it starts to spread out a little bit more towards the end of the season. Is this one of those situations where maybe, especially if you're with a league with your buddies and it's a home league, is this one where you maybe draft Amon-Ra St. Brown and he balls out the first few weeks like we expect, and then look to maybe turn him for a profit?
Yeah.
In redraft, for what it's worth, in redraft.
Yeah, I think you can if you've got the depth and can afford it, or if you're going to get something back that you need to be able that can replace him. Because I can't necessarily fathom having a redraft team where Amon-Ra is on my bench. So he's going to be productive, but I agree. The only thing that concerns me about Jameson Williams is he's been so inefficient. He was inefficient in preseason this year. And then he came up with the bad hammy. And after Dan Campbell was like, we're going to play him a lot because we can't play him we can't have him around the first 6 weeks. Now, I thought I read something where after 3 weeks, he can come back to the facility. He just can't practice, but he can be at the facility. But the other wide receivers they have are just such jags. And Laporta, it's going to be a heavy lift for him to be a real receiving threat. So Amon-Ra, well, when Williams gets back, he'll lose a little bit of productivity, but not much. I do think they're going to try to get Williams some, and it'll depend on how well Laporta and Gibbs settle in. When can they shake off? At what point do they stop being rookies? Usually we're like, oh, well, it's week 12, you're not a rookie anymore or something. But some guys just click and mature. With Gibbs, it could be sooner. And they've got David Montgomery there that provides that real stabilizing presence. So that may – and he's really good in the passing game too. So that might affect Gibbs. But the way Gibbs runs routes, they might go with Gibbs and Montgomery in the game at the same time together, especially early. And so when Williams gets back, it might not affect Amon-Ra at all. It's a little bit of a crapshoot. He had, 146 targets last year. He's wanting to play outside more. The perception that there's the perception that if you want to get the big money as a wide receiver, you got to play outside. And so he wants to go play outside. Well, speed wasn't his thing. And
right,
playing inside, his yards per route or yards per reception, only 11 last year. He's got a super high catch rate, but he's catching short passes. So I like Amon-Ra. And for me, if I can move him to somebody where I can get, an A.J. Brown or a Garrett Wilson or even a Cooper Kupp if things seem healthy, somebody that – because Kupp even gets a little more I think he's a little bit more productive per touch. And honestly, he does get a few more. He does get a bit more targets.
Sure.
So I think that's a feasible strategy. It's hard for me because he's a Lion, and if my team is doing well, I'm going to be
Right.
like, man, I'm going to hold my guy. But it's definitely a good strategy to approach that way.
All right. Well, let's touch on the last position, and we can show my tight end rankings as well. But the tight end position, we talked about it with Corey. It's after the first 5-6 guys, it's all up in the air. It is a total crapshoot. So the top 6, I don't think we're going to disagree much. Looking at my top 6 here, so I have Kelsey, Waller, Andrews, Hockenson, Pitts, Kittle. Now, I'm a little higher on Waller, so I could see people, maybe raising a slight eyebrow there. But I'm guessing that's roughly your top 6 as well.
Yeah, I have them Kelsey, Andrews, Hockenson, Waller, Pitts, and Kittle. So
Okay.
we're pretty close.
Yeah, so I don't think any of those guys we really need to spend a lot of time talking about. It's really the next 6. So who do you have as, tight ends 7 through 12?
So I have David Njoku at 7, Evan Ingram at 8, Dallas Goedert at 9, Pat Freiermuth at 10, Dalton Schultz at 11, and Juwan Johnson at 12.
All right, so you have Goddard, I think, fairly low compared to a lot of other people because even me having him at 7, I've seen him be 5 or 6 as well. He's kind of in that same tier with Kittle and Pitts. So are you concerned with all of the potential targets that won't go his way with Smitty and A.J. Brown both being wide receiver 1s this year?
I am. To me, it feels like Goddard is good. And he's going to have some games where you're like, oh, remember the days of Zach Ertz. But this offense is different, and they're not featuring the tight end like they used to. He's going to be good. He's going to be consistent, and he'll pop off for a couple games. But he isn't going to have a lot of games where he's just taking volume. Because they've got a good running game, and it's going to be it's anchored around Jalen Hurts. We'll see what happens with Penny and Swift, Gainwell. Trey Sermon was looking good against backups tonight. Not much for yardage, but he caught the ball well, playing all 3 downs. That's my hope as a Buckeye. But I just think Goddard, he's not special. He's a guy that kind of falls into those top. If he lands in the top 8, it's just because everything lined up. It isn't. He's not demanding the targets.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. You also mentioned Juwan Johnson, which I don't have him in my top 12, but that was somebody that Matt O'Hara actually talked about today at the Air Force Base. He was a guy that, if he's going to bank on kind of a outside of the top 12 random guy to throw in there, he really likes his potential workload, volume, and potential to score some points there in New Orleans. What do you think about Juwan Johnson? What made you put him at 12?
I think he's going to slide into a Marcus Colston type of role. I know they've got Michael Thomas there and Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed does his thing. Johnson is the tight end that catches the ball. Foster Moreau is going to be the inline guy. And Johnson, I think he had 6 touchdowns or 7 touchdowns on 46 receptions last year. So when they get in the red zone, that offense looks for him. And he's big. He's 6'3", 245 pounds or so. And he's athletic. If Michael Thomas goes down, I think Juwan Johnson slides into that role. As much as I want it to be A.T. Perry, I think it's Juwan Johnson that becomes their big slot, their what is it, slant guard Mike or something like that? Slant boy?
Yeah, slant boy.
I think Juwan Johnson slides into that role. So is he going to, he's going to split tight end snaps, and it wouldn't surprise me even if Moreau outsnaps him. But it's like the Hayden Hurst, Mark Andrews in Baltimore situation. Hurst is there for the blocking, the inline stuff, and Andrews was there to catch balls, and that's how I think it's going to be in New Orleans with Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau.
Yeah, no, I could absolutely see that. And honestly, I have Juwan Johnson quite a bit in best ball, and we had our guy, who was it? Sedated Fork, I think, was asking about best ball guys. So guys that I target often if I miss out on Kelsey, Waller, Andrews, Hawkinson, if I miss out on those guys, one of my favorites is Juwan Johnson. I have quite a bit of Juwan Johnson. I have a decent amount of Chigo Okonkwo. And then the third guy that I have quite a bit of is a guy that I put inside my top 12 in Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet last year, weeks 9 through 18, aka when they decided to actually throw the football, Cole Kmet was tight end 4. And I don't think people realize how good he was down the stretch, but he was a very, very good tight end in the second half of the season. If they would have just been throwing the ball similar to the amount that they would be throwing before, I think he's somebody that would be going in redraft ahead of the Evan Ingrams, the Dallas Goederts, Darren Waller range. Like, I think that's the range he would go in if we didn't have we're not throwing the ball the first half of the year and we're getting Justin Fields comfortable in this offense. I think if we would have seen that all year long, I think he would have finished as a top 6 tight end, and we would have been talking about him a lot higher than we are at this point. So I think Mark Andrews is a really, really good value right now in your redraft leagues and in your dynasty leagues as well. So Dennis, we did it, man. We got through all the top 12s. We talked through some of our guys we like, guys that we have in, guys that we have out. Dan, appreciate you popping in here at the end. Dennis, we're on the home stretch, man. What are the last couple things you got that you're working on right before the season starts?
Well, we're getting ready. We got our weekly columns getting assigned. Got a couple new columns going to be publishing each week. Steve Pintato's doing, Coach Stephen P. doing a heavy lift on a weekly column. But we're looking forward to that. We got the office hours forums coming up. We'll be hosting start sits on Sunday morning in the Facebook group. You know that our Facebook group is over 18,000 people now. In our Discord, I'll be doing it, and on Twitter from 10:30 to 12:30 Sunday mornings.
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Twitter or on X, whatever you want to call it, at Dynasty Price. We are getting so close to the season. There'll be a few more notes and nuggets as we get all the way in. We will be back next week, maybe even a new day. Stay tuned to that here on the Better Sports Network. For Dennis, for me, for Tyler, thank you so much. See you next week.